folks, Craig Danger, Vinyl Record Player. Oh, back again, and yeah, it's been a minute. I am going to confess that it has been a lot of minutes since I last made a video, but you know what? I'm back, feeling recharged, ready to take on the topic of the day, which of course is 6 must-have one-off LPs, and actually one that is not a must-have. You could even avoid, I'm not going to say must-avoid, but again, it's more of a curio. So we're going to do that. Basically, one-offs being this group and or artist only did this once. So some interesting ones here, but oh, great records. Classic records, I would even say. So hey, as you do when you're hanging with Craig Danger, grab yourself a beverage, but above all, for safety's sake, buckle up. Yeah, so let's just get going right out of the gate. Talk about some classic one-off records, which, yeah, let's just start out with a real classic, in my opinion. How about Derek and the Dominoes from 1972? Classic. We got even a little bit of a gatefold here. This is basically a one-off. I mean, in essence, as you can see right here, they did a live album. I just don't think that it even touches this album. Frankly, I think the live album is a little pieced together. There's not really very many tracks from this on that album. Like, there's like Crossroads and stuff, which is like, you know, why are you doing a Cream live album when you're not Cream? Anyway, this album though is actually really good. It's a double album, really worth a pickup. I've seen this record actually relatively cheap. We're talking about like, you know, $2, $3, $5. So if you can pick it up for that, well worth a listen. Definitely worth a buy. Of course, everyone knows Layla, which is like, Layla, come on. Everyone's heard Layla a billion times. If you've listened to the radio, then yeah, you've heard Layla, and you're maybe a little bit tired of it. But man, this album is just so much more than that. You have yourself Keep On Growing is a classic. Bell Bottom Blues is, fantastic. This Derek and the Dominoes, of course, was basically a mix of Eric Clapton, plus basically what was left of the friends of Delaney and Bonnie. So you've got basically Bobby Whitlock on keyboards. He actually has a fantastic channel, YouTube channel, where he tells a lot of wicked old stories about, working with Eric Clapton. Actually, he is basically the co-writer on most of these tracks with Eric Clapton. They had a super short-term kind of collaboration, and you know what? He even had published a book, which I ended up downloading on Kindle. It was really worth a read. Really fun stuff. He did not do much as a solo artist. I gotta be real. I'll be 1,000%. I just don't get his voice. It's difficult. But you know what? In Derek and the Dominoes, he's fantastic. The collaboration was kind of amazing. Also, I mentioned Keep On Growing. It's Too Late is on here. Have You Ever Loved a Woman? This is it's a double album, but it's a really good album. Even if you're like, oh, Layla, I cannot hear that again. Don't hear it again. Don't hear it again. In fact, this is the last track on side 4. So you know what? You got 3 sides of pretty good quality. There's some kind of basic blues numbers, but they're not bad. This, I think, is... A lot of people would even call this basically Eric Clapton peaking in terms of quality songwriting. And I can definitely see that. I can't see how this is not some of the best work that Eric Clapton put out, again, coming out in 72. But this is, again, a fantastic... Worth noting also that, of course, Duane Allman played on some sessions. Particularly, I think Layla is his main contribution. But again, he may be on other parts of this. He, of course, never toured with them. They did like a single tour and then basically broke up, hence the live album. But you know what? Really good album in general. Apparently, Eric Clapton and Duane Allman really kind of were enamored with each other's playing and really jammed out well. But like I say, I think his contributions are relatively limited on this. But you know what? Overall, great album. Worth mentioning, obviously, Carl Radle, who was in Delaney and Bonnie and Friends. He would go on to be Eric Clapton's bassist, until about 78, when he died. And then, of course, Jim Gordon, fantastic drummer. He's got a little bit of a darker story. Basically, he kind of had a lot of demons, a lot of psychological problems, and basically he murdered his mother. Still in jail. Not good. So kind of a little doomy of a doomed band. But like I say, Eric Clapton, and again, you know, you can, there's some really good photos of the band inside in the gatefold, which kind of makes this fun and worthwhile buying. Again, don't automatically assume it's all Layla's, because it isn't Layla's. It is actually a really well-formed rock album, and definitely worth a pickup. I'm going to go ahead and call it a must-have, friends. A must-have. In the Dominoes, this of course is Layla, the album. Again, it's on side 4 though. You got a whole lot of tracks before you even get there. So just saying. Derek and the Dominoes, a one-off that I would consider definitely a must-have. And you know what? Hey, since you're here, like, subscribe. Super helps the video. More people get to see it, which is, you know, kind of why I'm doing this. So I'm not just looking at a telephone and talking to myself, which again, I guess would probably be its own interest, but it isn't mine. So like and subscribe, but also tell me in the comments, let me know of a one-off that you love that is like fantastic, that is kind of a must-have. I know there are a ton of one-offs out there, but these are kind of the ones that I have that I just think, you know, fantastic albums, always worth a play. So yeah, leave a comment, and yeah, I'm excited to hear what your one-offs might be. And also on the Eric Clapton tip, I just thought I'd mention this one quickly. Blind Faith, of course, super short term, super group. Eric Clapton, Rick Gretsch, and I know people are like, Rick Gretsch, well, we love him. Bassist from Family. Anyway, Rick Gretsch is kind of like the guy who's like, who, let's just say, he flipped a coin and yeah, he ended up, pulling, let's just say he ended up pulling the one-armed bandit of life and hitting the jackpot. Because, brother, I don't know that he did very much else outside of this and a little bit of stuff with Family. Then, of course, you have drummer extraordinaire Ginger Baker, who, of course, was in Cream with Eric Clapton, and then, of course, Steve Winwood. This, I still think, is a fantastic document. There are not a lot of tracks on this one. This one is only 6 tracks, but you know what? This is available kind of all day for under 20 bucks. And you know what? This is, I think, some of Eric Clapton's sort of best riff rock. Had to Cry Today. There's a lot of, obviously, Can't Find My Way Home. A lot of really fantastic stuff on this. Again, super short-lived band. After this, Eric Clapton, as they were touring with Delaney and Bonnie, he ends up joining Delaney and Bonnie. And then, of course, that becomes, of course, Derek and the Dominoes. All tying it in here on the channel. Wow. But again, this one, very worth it. This is one of my favorite sort of rock albums. The last track is like 15 minutes long. That's the only one where I would say, we can maybe let that one go. But Blind Faith, the only album by this acclaimed supergroup, I believe it's from '69, classic, and must-have, one-off, indeed. This one's actually very interesting. I just listened to this the other week. Richard Betts, otherwise known as Dickie Betts, of course from the Allman Brothers. Highway Call, this would be from 1974. You know what? This is a really good album. I re-listened to it again, and you know what? I would say if you like Brothers and Sisters, which was kind of Dickie Betts' sort of seizing of the leadership in the Allman Brothers, of course, Dwayne Allman dies, Barry Oakley dies. Ooh, real kind of cursed, deathy sort of a band going on. Again, who doesn't love those early Allman Brothers albums? But again, Brothers and Sisters was kind of a different take, a little bit more of a countrified experience. And you know what? A lot of that on here, as you can see, real kind of down-home vibes on the back. And you know what? This is actually, like I say, a really fun record. If you're looking for like the Allman Brothers specifically, you're not going to get it. You will get sort of semi, I guess, Ramblin' Man type stuff. But again, I think the playing on here is great. There's great pedal steel, a little bit of fiddle here and there. But you know what? This is more of a countrified experience, but really good album. Of course, this would be the only album, the one-off, you could say. I'm going to go ahead and call it you can call it a must-have. This one, you could miss it, but if you are a Allman Brothers fan, this is definitely worth a pickup, and it is a must-have for you. But I would also say He did do a couple of albums with another band called Great Southern, which I might have just been his band in general. But you know what? This is the only one that he put out under Richard Betts and Highway Call. Very worth a pickup. Kind of a quasi must-have, dare I say it, from, of course, 1974. Dickie Betts, Richard Betts, as he was known. Of course, next I got to turn to one of my favorites of all time. In fact, I've called it many times on the channel the sexiest album ever released by a married couple. And that could only be George and Gwen McCrae with Together from 1975. This one I still listen to. It's such a classic, basically track to track to track. There's not a dud on this one. Kind of favorites on this one would be I'll Do the Rockin', Mechanical Body. Ooh, Mechanical Body. Gwen McCrae Out of Control on that one. Winners Together or Losers Apart. It basically, the whole thing is a project of both of these singers where basically they had both had a top 10 hit. George hits in 74 with Rock Me Baby. And by the way, if you haven't heard George's album, I think it's also called Rock Me Baby. Oh my God, it's a scorcher. Every track on that is fantastic. And then of course, Rockin' Chair. Gwen does Rockin' Chair. Reaches number 9 in 1975. So they're like, hey, let's release an album of duets. They had done some duet work earlier in their career. They'd actually been married since 63. So basically they get together with producer, songwriter Clarence Reed. Ooh, fantastic. Part of the Cat and Alston label, of course, Florida Soul. Fantastic stuff. Of course, we know of Little Beaver as well. Classic guitarist who played on a lot of these. I'm sure he played on this one too. Anyway, really fantastic record, cover to cover. Everything's written by Clarence Reed, who's also known as I believe it's Blowfly. He did a lot of sort of comedy records, but his solo material and like his songwriting, it's fantastic. I think he's definitely one of the most underrated guys. But anyway, Gwen and George McCrae, this album sold almost butt-kiss, very little, not a lot of people bought it. It is available on streaming. If you got the Spotify or the YouTube Music, definitely check it out. But you know, if you can find a copy of this, pick it up. I think this one, like I say, cover to cover is classic. Of course, the sad and tragic sort of epilogue of this particular album is within a year, of course, George and Gwen would be divorced. So that would be the end of their couple. No longer together. Now, whether that was to do with the fact that this sold butt kiss or, you know, it was cocaine, if I had to guess, I would go with option B. I mean, it was 70s, 75. It was probably cocaine. But anyway, George and Gwen McCrae together, no longer, but this album, ooh, Scorcher and a one-off. They never did another one. Of course, we got this one from 74. The Eliminators. How about the Eliminators? You know what? Funky album. This is basically a one-off of this group, and it's stunning. When you listen to this album, it's mind-blowing that they only did one album. But these guys are from North Carolina, not a monstrously big musical scene there, and I think they kind of just didn't go further than this one album. Released this on, of course, the BRC label, which is, I have never seen anything else on the BRC label. There was, of course, a division of Brunswick. I think by 75, Brunswick was just out of business. And you know what? Even today, a lot of that stuff is really hard to find. Your late Jackie Wilson stuff, Shy Lights, a lot of that stuff just basically, you know, it just is, it's not licensed for streaming, and basically all that's left are kind of the original records. This one, I believe, was re-released around the 1990s, but you want to talk about like a fantastic funk album. This is no covers. This is cover-to-cover greatness, and these guys are funky, but not in a low-down, dirty sort of Ohio Players way. I'd more put them alongside a Willie Hutch, like a sort of a funky soul kind of style. Not, you know, at no point on this record does someone go, "Yow," or anything like that. I'm just saying. Not saying I got a big problem with a cameo in the Ohio Players style funk, but this is not that. This is, again, more funky soul with a lot heavier funk than, say, a Willie Hutch. But you know what? Loving Explosion. Apparently this record also, they made a mistake. The explosion really has nothing to do with it, but they ended up putting this on the cover. And of course, you know what? Here's the thing. No one bought it. But the Eliminators, This one is one of those ones you're not going to find an original copy, but again, the re-release, I picked the re-release up for about 20 bones, and great stuff. Also available on streaming. The Eliminators Loving Explosion, a one-off from 1974. They only released like 3 singles, and this, then they gone. They gone. Another classic, and I believe the last of my classics must-have today. Always love talking about this one. How about Minnie Collier? Shades of a Genius on the Chess label from 1965. Of course, there's your Chess label. Wow, this album remains kind of a classic. I would call it sort of like a... there's shades of Etta James's At Last on this one. Our hit, of course, was I Had a Talk with My Man Last Night, and you know, it's an absolutely fantastic sort of silky sort of, I would even call it supper club soul kind of a vibe to it. But ooh, Minnie has a giant voice, and you know what? It's all over this album. This is not an easy album to find. I think I bought this probably in the aughts or maybe the late 90s. And wow, this is not available via streaming. Minnie does have actually sort of a greatest hits available on streaming. But after this, she did release some gospel albums. But as far as being a secular singer, this was her one-off. And wow, I still think this is a super classic album from 1965. Again, would it sell anything? No, not at all. I don't know what the heck is going on this cover. It's a ball? Is this a Christmas ornament? Like what is this? It really makes no sense. I don't know what was going on over there at Chess, but this is, what did we do here? What is with this? Anyway, Minnie Collier deserved better. Wow, what a fantastic singer. And this one, again, cover-to-cover classic that also is a one-off, and I would call it a must-have, just because, wow, I've played the absolute heck out of this one. So that's it for the 6 must-haves. You know what? I got one more that I've tried with this one. I've really tried. This, of course, is the Super Session. Mike Bloomfield, Al Cooper, Stephen Stills. You know what? This is just a jam session. I know these guys are like great players and stuff, but frankly, I think one side is Stills, the other side is basically Bloomfield and Cooper. I really feel this is a curio. Certainly there are those people who are like, oh man, you really got to get into the subtleties of this track. Hey, I get it, but I've tried, and I just can't make it happen. So Bloomfield, Cooper, Stills, this one I see a lot in the used bins, and I think it's probably very similar. People are similar to me. They go, oh wow, great players on that. Then you buy it, and you're like, okay, this is just kind of a jam session with no real like songs, like nothing that has any hit potential. It's just some players playing some music, and it's like, So again, this is my one overrated. I'm not gonna say must avoid, but I mean you could. If you see this and it's like $20, please run, sir. Do not pay 20 pounds for this. Then you see it in a $1 bill and or $1 bin, and you're like, oh okay, I saw this. Craig Danger recommended against it, but I'll buy it for $1. Who cares? I think I got this one for about 3 bones. So it's not like I'm burned by it, but I'm also like, ooh, not that great. I will give it a re-listen, maybe even tonight. But you know what? Not a great one-off, not a must-have. So, wow! Managed to really put down some minutes on this video. If you're still around, how about a like? How about a subscribe? That helps. I'd imagine this video is not going to be viewed a lot because, like I say, it's been a few weeks since I've done one. But again, even the Danger needs a break. Sometimes, life, it happens. And you can't be making the videos. So yeah, like, subscribe, and you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and so I will see you on the next one.